Scott.
I'm Ben.
And this is a review. On today's episode, which is episode 65, we'll be reviewing Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu stars Ryan Reynolds as Detective Pikachu, who teams up with Justice Smith, who is not Will Smith's son, and they have to solve a crime. Ben, what did you think about Detective Pikachu? I'm going to keep saying it like that.
It was way better than I think a lot of people were expecting, and I would go so far as to venture that it had any right to be.
Yes, I quite enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Now, I will say right off the bat that I will not... we're not even... Before we get to our proper review, if you're not a fan of Pokemon or of the Pokemon like the show, the game, something Pokemon related, if you're just like not into it, don't bother. Just turn this off now. Don't bother, because this is for Pokemon fans only. Like, not this review, but like the movie. Yeah. So like, I guess by proxy, the review also.
You can, if you don't have at the very least, like, oh, I used to play Pokemon when I was, between the ages of 6 and 10, and I haven't done any shit since, and I wasn't into Yu-Gi-Oh! Or anything else. If you're not even that, definitely don't go.
Yeah.
Like, this movie is definitely expecting that you have at least have that, like, bare minimum base where you're like, I know there's a Pokemon, and, like, a vague idea of, like, their powers and all that kind of shit.
There is some setup, kind of, but really the only bit of exposition is more about the specific city, Rhyme City. Mm-hmm. So basically Rhyme City, which is founded by Bill Nighy. I don't remember his character's name, but it's the actor Bill Nighy. And basically he wanted to make a city where Pokemon and people are integrated as one. So there are no trainers, there are no battles, there are no Pokeballs. They're just Pokemon are like pets a little bit more in this world.
Coexistence.
Yeah. Which, to be honest with you, like, when you hear it, I immediately got a little, like, worried. I'm like, I don't know about this. And even though I enjoyed this, I don't love the idea of this, like, city. Like, it kind of takes away from the whole idea of the Pokemon world. And, obviously I don't know how big of a fan of Pokemon you are, but I was a kid growing up when this was like really big, when the very first generation was coming out, when the card game was big, when the anime was big. So this is like deeply rooted into my soul. So like, I've continued playing the games. I'm that guy. Like, I've played the DS games, all of them. I don't really watch the cartoons or anything. I just play the games. But they do a lot right with the integrating the Pokemon into the world. It's just, you want to see trainers and gyms and this and that. You do get to see Pokemon battles, and you do get to see a decent amount of Pokemon, but it does feel like there's like a weird trade-off. Like, it's like, we're giving you a little bit. It's a nice introduction, but it's like it's not fully there yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You can definitely tell. I think they were testing the waters to see if, like, they could pull off the live action CG hybrid integration. And they're like, okay, we'll have this bottle story where we essentially tell like a very specific type of story, like a detective kind of mystery, whatever, sure, and just see if we can pull off Pokemon in that. Not like a full on balls deep Pokemon story.
Sure. Which, to that extent, they did succeed. Like, the actual Pokemon look really good.
Yes.
Most of them look pretty photorealistic versions of the game, like the cartoon game, but some of them they did take a little bit more creative liberties with, especially like Gengar is a good example.
Gengar looked a lot different.
He's creepier.
Yeah, I was kind of into it.
They work. That was I'd say that's actually a good thing. Like, most of the ones they changed, it was because they were like the texture wouldn't translate properly, or some element of it probably wouldn't work exactly, or they just look cuter in the games than they do. Like, some of them just inherently look creepier when you see them in real life.
Yeah, they did a good job of like giving all of them like textures you know, because in the cartoon, you know, you have shapes and broad outlines, but like seeing, you know, like the bird Pokemon like have like these lush feathers, and seeing like scales on Charizard and all this, like all these kind of like neat little details, and
Yeah.
the animation again, like they really did a good job of like, I don't think they ever felt like they didn't belong.
Yeah, I will say there was a few times, like here and there, when
Some
you'd
shots,
see,
kind of looked a little wonky, but like, I mean, we're talking probably 85-15, something like that. Where
Yeah.
it's like vast majority of the time, it's super, super successful.
Well,
Yeah.
and a great thing is like the beginning of the movie, like when you're first kind of settling in, it really does a great job of like there's this beautiful kind of shots, and then you see like the bird Pokemon flying around, and they feel very natural, and then you start seeing some of the more crazier looking ones, and they all do feel like they belong in this world, and that was, I think, what was really cool. Like they aren't just all just walking around. Like there's like a gecko Pokemon, and he's like climbing on glass, and like some of them say their names, but some of them don't. It's a little bit more like animalistic, but it's the perfect balance.
Yeah.
Of making them look like what you want them to look like, sound like what they want you to sound like, but then also like translating them into this more real setting, you know?
Yeah, they all felt. Yeah, that's a great point. They all feel like real, like they could be like organic creatures in this world. Like they behave kind of like you said, animalistically. The little Venusaur kind of like squeaking around, walking
Look like
around.
little Bulbasaur looked like Toothless from How to Train Your
Bulbasaur,
Dragon.
Yeah. It was adorable. There's a lot of like really genuinely like earnest, like well made, like they clearly cared about how they were like using the Pokemon and integrating them in, and
Yeah, and they give you a little while of just going through the world before you get into the whole Ryan Reynolds comic relief stuff, which we'll get into. So yeah, they do a good job of establishing the world. The actual city looks really cool, and you can really imagine some of the more gamey elements happening on the outskirts of this city. You know what I mean? Like you can imagine what's going on outside of this city, and there's a big scope to it. So that's really exciting to see. And so then you do get to your main character, Justice Smith, who's playing Tim. And surprisingly, I like Tim. He's a good character, and he's well acted.
Yeah, he's good. He goes above serving his purpose. Like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Your favorite.
Jurassic World Dick Rider. The line made famous. You know, he didn't do himself any favors in that movie. You know, he basically runs around and screams most of the time. He doesn't really play like a character. So it was nice to see him play someone that actually felt like a person and had emotions and things. So
he's not great. He's not amazing, but he's good, and he does have like a little bit more depth to him than you'd expect watching the trailer. Which is good because all the other human characters are dog shit.
Correct.
Like the actress that plays, her name is Lucy. I don't know why they don't just call her Misty, because she's got Psyduck. She looks like Misty. She's like the weird companion that kind of comes on. It's very weird, but it's played by an actress named Catherine Newton, who is in other movies. She was in Supernatural. She was in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. So she's been in good material, but she is really, really bad. She acts like she is an anime character in the worst way possible. And I have seen other things do this where like characters, we kind of complained about this with Alita Battle Angel a little bit, but not as bad there as it is here. Where she just feels like over the top in every capacity and doesn't feel like a real person.
Which, how ironic is that? Because I never got that vibe from anything I saw from all the promotional material from this movie.
She was a lot more like, you never hear her speak. She always looks kind of serious. But like when she starts talking,
that was probably by design.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like Alita had like the terrible boyfriend was like pretty heavily featured in those trailers.
Yeah.
So you're like, fuck, he's rough. And then you watch the movie, you're like, oh yeah, he is terrible. But like Alita actually kind of works. Yeah. Anyways, anime shit. But yeah.
But so that's problematic. Some of the other characters, like there's like a character in the like underground fight club kind of thing later.
Yeah.
Who was a little
He felt ripped right out of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
He totally did. Yeah, he was very like 80s villain. But you know, at least in that scene, it's kind of a campier, more fun scene. So it works. His character services the scene, and he's not in the whole movie, so it doesn't get on your nerves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what you have here is a basic. Tim is trying to find his dad. He's supposedly dead, but he meets Pikachu, who's voiced by Ryan Reynolds, and only he can hear him. And Pika Reynolds doesn't believe that he's dead, and so wackiness ensues. Where they go with the plot, I think, gets a little too crazy to me. Without spoiling it, it heavily involves Mewtwo, which is from the very beginning, and it gets a little too far-fetched for its own good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen until the final act, and it's resolved fast enough that it's like, all right, we can just kind of skip over that and pretend it didn't happen.
It goes about 1.5 twists too deep.
Yes, I would have been okay with it being a little bit more grounded, because it's already a lot to take in with like all these creatures and these effects and all this stuff. It didn't need to go full on, like, it was a little bit too cerebral, I guess you could say, but like just over the top sci-fi, you know? It felt out of place in this world, which is already brimming with imagination and weird stuff to begin with, and then it's like, it's just a little too much.
There's a scene that's reminiscent of the first Hobbit movie, when the OG Fellowship, they're walking through those mountains, and then the mountains become alive because they're actually these giant rock monsters, and all it is, all the entire purpose that it serves is just Peter Jackson blowing his wad with $250 million so you can just have giant monster rock fight while the Hobbit's like cling to his shit. There's a scene that's basically that Pokemon cousin in this, where if you actually stop to think about it, which is what I just did right now while you were talking, it serves literally no function on the plot. And it's like a 5-minute scene just to have like that spectacle scene.
Well, and it's one of those, like, the villain is succeeding with this ridiculous plan that is going to get reversed anyways kind of thing, or it's like, okay, this is too big of a, like, what they're doing.
And like they already established the point like that they set up, because they're like, they have these, they walk up to these screens that spout exposition back, and like the scene itself is like, oh, what are they doing?
The exposition holograms and stuff. Yeah, sure.
And like, what are they doing with these studies and what have you? And it's like, okay, we get it. We didn't need to see. Yeah, like we get where they're going with. It
hits you. It hits you pretty hard on the head with like where it's going pretty early on. It's like pretty obvious, most of the twists. But once again, this is obviously not aimed at like. It's a weird thing, because like Pokemon has always had this weird balance of like, it's for kids, but not really, because everyone that loves Pokemon are like 30-year-olds or shit. You know what I mean? So it's like this weird like dichotomy that they're trying to appease both audiences, which once again, I think they actually did succeed more than not in, like, 'cause there was a lot of kids in our screening.
Oh, for sure. And they were laughing a lot, especially in the beginning.
It. Yeah. Going on about Ryan, all the acting's bad. Ryan Reynolds is really funny, obviously. He's playing Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
I don't know. It gets a little much after a while, where it's like he's just too much Ryan Reynolds, and it's like too much for this movie at times. But he's also the best part about it at times. Like,
yeah, it's a hard balance to nail, because like, you want him to be this cute, wisecracking, fun. Like, you want him to serve his purpose, and mostly he does. But it's not like Deadpool, where like PG Ryan Reynolds just doesn't work as well.
Well, and I will say that he mostly works, but there just felt like times when he was like cracking wise like a little bit too much, and like some of his comments were funny, but it was like the situation. It was like more Deadpool than Pikachu, and it was like, okay, I get it, it's funny, but like he's why is he so self-aware and like so this and so that? It was like too funny at times almost. It was like I was never not enjoying him, so it's like a weird complaint. But it did take me out at times, I will say.
He gets a little, and like sometimes his cheekiness can like deflate.
It's overpowering.
More like dramatic scenarios.
Exactly.
Like
yes.
you're like, right when you think you're gonna get kind of taken away, like, oh, I'm gonna, we're gonna have a big twist, or this is gonna be like kind of a more heavier dramatic moment. You always have like
him undercutting it a little bit.
There's always his wisecracks kind of as the soundtrack. So.
But yeah, and then I will say another complaint I had, which was pretty, we were talking about how much we like all the different Pokemon and how much variety there is. There comes a point about halfway through the movie when I realized that they had kind of run out of, like, I don't want to say they run out of, like, budget, because they have a lot of Pokemon but on the screen all the time. It's always like there's always like, oh, there's little things on the power lines or stuff flying by. It's very, like, busy in the right way. Mm-hmm. But it's like they started reusing the same Pokemon over and over again, and it was like weirdly noticeable. It was like, huh. And I could tell you them all. I'm not going to list them all out right now because I don't want to just be that guy on this podcast, but a lot of them would pop up in appropriate situations, but then sometimes they're just like, okay, why are there so many of this one and you don't see any of these other 1,000 Pokemon that they have, mm-hmm. So that was a little weird to me. And it starts to get really noticeable, I think, as the movie goes on. It just starts to bother you. That's like, okay, it kind of makes the world feel a little smaller. Like they were just copy and pasting. Like, okay, they only had enough budget to model this many Pokemon, and they just were able to copy and paste them in different spots. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they should have reallocated that budget from the pointless scene that I just talked about.
True. Yeah,
that was probably like at least 2 or 3 shooting days.
Well, yeah, and it's so you're right. They could have. I don't know. Maybe they didn't have the rights to. I don't know how it works. Like maybe there's some weird issue.
They should have. It's Toho. Like Toho helped produce the movie. They should just have it all in the bag.
Toho. That's Godzilla.
Well, Toho also. They said it's in association with Toho as well.
Well, then, if that's the case, okay. So if you don't know, with Godzilla, we're gonna talk a little bit about Godzilla. They lease out every monster like they're an individual actor. So like the whole thing with Godzilla movies is like they can only have so many monsters because like they each individually have like their own contracts. Yeah, like it's weird. It's a weird like system they have. So like I was wondering if like there was something similar going on here,
that
or
could
like
be like there was a certain like
who knows? It's weird. I mean, there are a lot of Pokemon. You see a lot of them, so it'd be a weird like, and there's some of them that are like, there's a lot of newer ones.
Yeah, they have a good mix of like the iconic ones and
some of the more obscure. Yeah, there's something for everybody, but it does feel like there's something weird going on.
That's an interesting point. We should look into that.
I don't know. But irregardless, I think we're ready for final thoughts. So Ben, final thoughts on Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu, very solid. Definitely like a good sort of kids and adults nailing. I think, like you said, most of the time they nail appealing to both audiences in pretty equal measure. Like I never felt like they're like pandering to the children or like purposely being edgy for the adults. They're just kind of like in that sweet, like that OG Shrek PG sweet spot.
Sure.
Right? Which, Rob Letterman worked on Shrek as an animator at DreamWorks before he became a director. So that's all kind of fallen full circle stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. The live action CGI hybrid style really, really works. It sets up a really fun Pokemon world where, like you said, I think the thing that gets me jazzed the most was like the Pokebattle stuff. And I just want to see the trainer movie.
Yeah.
So, but like the detective story is fine. The plot gets a little too loaded, where, like I said, probably 1.5 to 2 twists too deep. But overall, a very good time. Definitely worth taking the kids if you're at all a Pokemon fan. This will satisfy at least some member berries for you. So I would give it a solid 7. 7 Thunder Volt tackles. 7 Volt tackles out of 10.
Nice.
Worth your time.
Yeah, the one big thing, the takeaway I have for this movie is the fabled video game movie curse has finally been broken. Whether or not people take notice of this and learn, like with comic book movies, and actually can continue this trend is yet to be seen. But they did manage to take a beloved franchise that a lot of people are very well aware of and have a lot of, nostalgia for, and they managed to create that world on the screen and tell a original, if not amazing, story in that universe. Now, the story isn't that great, but what I've always said about video games to movies is you really need to capture the world and the elements of that world first, and they did that. And the story, you don't care if it's that bad because you're so enthralled with what they're able to accomplish with all these things on the screen. That being said, the human acting leaves a lot to be desired. The story is pretty bad. Like, really, like, it's not horrible. It's just kind of there. And I was never really invested in the story itself, other than, like, when can we see more Pokemon and what's going to happen next. And there was a lot of neat set pieces and neat locations and it's a very spectacular in like a spectacle kind of way movie. But yeah, a little uneven overall, and the lack of more Pokemon, or rather the seeing so many of certain same Pokemon over and over again kind of deflated me a little bit. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I would recommend it if you're a big fan of Pokemon. I'd give it a 7.5 coffee cups out of 10.
There you go.
Sure. So yeah, we're back. We did it. We did another review. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry we've been gone. Not that anyone's really been keeping track or cares, but I care, and I know that we've been gone. I've been having some technical difficulties, so hopefully those are over, and we will be continuing to provide new reviews once a week like we used to. What's next week?
That would be John. Are you gonna do
John Wick?
Yeah. Well, I'm out of town.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll wait for you to come back. Well, when do you come back?
But May's so loaded. That's the thing. It's like by the time I get back, it'll be almost time for Godzilla and Rocket Man.
When does Aladdin come out?
Like 2 days before I get back.
Okay, so something
We'll figure it out.
We'll review something for you. Keep your ears open for that. And hey, as always, I'm Scott.
I'm Ben.
And this has been a review. Thanks for listening.